every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe, to assure the survival and the success of liberty.
You have found the 22 November Network, the voice of the grassroots JFK research community. This is the Lone Gunman Podcast with your host, your boy, Rob Clark.
Hello. What's up, everybody? This is your boy Rob Clark hitting the post like a damn DJ today. Welcome to the Lone Gunman Podcast on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I'm sitting here today outside, of course, enjoying the weather. I hope it's nice where you are. We got a 3-day weekend ahead of us here in the United States of America, if you're fortunate enough not to work for corporate America. But that's another story for another day. Anyway, today is going to be a little bit of a part 2 to last week. Because after speaking with my researcher buddy, Russ LaChapelle, he ingrained in me through a very long and extensive phone call about some details I might have messed up on the last one. So we're gonna run through the important parts again today, and hopefully I've got it right. We're gonna look at stealing the body and how they got away with it and what they did to it, and everything else entailed in that today. Part 2 of the medical evidence from your boy Rob Clark. Also, let me remind everyone before we get into that, time is ticking away, people. Before you know it, it is going to be September, okay? And at the end of September is the JFK Historical Group's conference on the Warren Report, 50 years later, a critical look. And it's going to be held in Alexandria, Virginia. So you need to contact Dr. David Denton to get your tickets. And you need to contact the Crown Plaza Old Town Hotel to secure your reservations. You can buy tickets at the door, so just get there, people. One way or the other, plane, train, automobile, on John Candy's back. It doesn't matter how you get there, just get there. We want to hang out with you, we want to see you, we want to experience a JFK conference with you. Me and Doug from the Dallas Action, the very fine podcast, the Dallas Action with Douglas Campbell. We are going to be there on the ground together, live and in person, covering the conference from beginning to end. We're going to have interviews, we're going to be tweeting live, we're going to be having videos, doing blogs right on the spot. And hopefully we'll have some cool pics. And we got all kinds of good stuff lined up for you. So if you cannot make it one way or the other, tune in to the 22 November Network, because we will be bringing it to you. Well, not bringing it, but covering it live for you as best we can. That said, we look forward to seeing you there. Okay? You want to hang out with us. We're going to be fun. It's going to be a fun time. It's not going to be no stuffy old people with a bunch of suits and ties on, hopefully. We are going to see you there. We're going to have fun. It's a serious subject, but we're going to cover it with a lightened eyeball. and still bring you everything that goes on there. Okay, let's get into stealing the body. Okay, we know the events of the 22nd of November 1963 very well. Anybody familiar with this case does, and what occurred after the fatal shots in Dealey Plaza were fired. The limousine, helmed by Secret Service agent William Greer, made its way to Parkland Hospital. Upon arriving at Parkland Hospital, JFK was removed from the limousine and brought into trauma room number 1. He was worked on vigorously by the doctors there at Parkland to try to desperately save his life, and they did not succeed. Of course, his injuries prevented that. And from the earliest accounts, and even from the doctors at Parkland, and eyewitnesses, JFK did have a blowout to the back of his head, back in the right occipital region. Okay, this was witnessed at Parkland by numerous doctors. They pointed, many, including Malcolm Kilduff, pointed to his right temple, indicating where a shot had entered JFK. And many, if not all of the doctors, some later on to recant their story, but many assumed that the wound at the base of the neck, at the bottom of the throat area, was a shot from the front. And they used this to insert a trach tube while at Bethesda. Now, many witnesses in the trauma room never remember seeing this gashed open wound to his neck like we see in some of the autopsy photos later. You know, it appears to be like a I don't want to say what it looks like, but it looks like instead of looking just like a bullet hole, it is horizontally gashed open. And the doctors at Bethesda or at Parkland don't recall doing that. If there's a hole there, a bullet hole, they would have used that or widened it a little bit to get the trach tube in. At the time, they wouldn't have cut it, lacerated it horizontally to open it up any further, because you want a tight airlock there so that the air can flow freely in and out of JFK's lungs without being able to escape around it. So you want a tight seal there. So they would not have gashed it open like that. They would have used the existing hole that was there, and if needed be, they would have widened it up a little bit. Like I said last week, when trying to figure out the wounds on JFK, it's a minefield, because damn near everybody, including doctors, nurses, morticians, just anybody that had contact with that body after the shooting claims to have seen different wounds on JFK. And like I said in the last one, the nurse at Parkland, or one of the nurses at Parkland, Aubrey Bell, she did not see anything wrong with JFK's face. So much so that she asked the doctor where he was hurt, because she didn't see anything, and he tilted his head to the side and she saw the blowout to the back part of the head. And we got into a little bit about Richard Lipsey and what he stated that he saw as far as 3 wounds. One, of course, the blowout to the back of the head, a bullet entrance at the base of the skull at the top of the neck, and one in the upper part of the back. And he diagrammed this for the HSCA investigators. And nobody else mentions even fleetingly that wound at the base of the neck, the base of the skull and the top of the neck, as an entrance wound or a wound, period. And like I said, in the last one, the nurse at Parkland, Aubrey Bell, she did not see anything wrong with JFK's face. So much so that she asked the doctor where he was hurt, because she didn't see anything, and he tilted his head to the side and she saw the blowout to the back part of the head. And we got into a little bit about Richard Lipsey and what he stated that he saw as far as 3 wounds. One, of course, the blowout to the back of the head, a bullet entrance at the base of the skull at the top of the neck, And we touched on a little bit about why the back wound could have possibly been created en route to Bethesda. But here's the intriguing thing. Now, if we go back to Parkland Hospital, and they try to save his life. They ultimately fail. They call in for a coffin. So I think it was Aubrey Reich brought the coffin, and inside the coffin was a body bag and some oxygen tanks. Now, I don't know if they were planning on scuba diving or if they were going to strap oxygen to the president in case in the coffin he came back to life and could survive. I don't know what the purpose of the oxygen tanks would have been. And of course we know what the body bag was for. Now, we also know that there was, well, let's fast forward to Bethesda real quick. From multiple witnesses, we have a decoy ambulance or a hearse arriving at the back of the Bethesda Naval Hospital with the president's body in a body bag. Okay, we don't know. Well, it said it was in a, what was it? It was either a pink or gray shipping casket. That's what some people said. Richard Lipsey never specified if he took the body out of a casket or not, just that it was in a body bag, and he took it out of the body bag and put it on the table. Why is that important? Well, we know that the hearse that Jackie Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy were in, along with the ornate bronze coffin, was empty because JFK was in a body bag taken around back. So they were with a decoy coffin. Now you have to ask yourself, how did JFK's body get into a body bag and out of his nice shiny bronze ornate casket that he was taken out of Parkland Hospital in without anybody seeing? Well, I will tell you. Apparently, in the melee of the aftermath of the president actually dying, and the calling in of the priest, and of course a grieving Jackie, and keeping people out of there that shouldn't be in there. It's quite possible. And of course, William Greer, states that he never left the president's body. It's quite possible that upon, of course, the arrival of the bronze ornate casket, they were preparing the body for his shipment, and they cleaned the body at Parkland. Okay, they scrubbed the blood off and everything, and wrapped him in a sheet. And this is where the story forks, okay? Because we have the testimony of Tammy True, whose real name was Nancy Powell, that she gave to the Warren Commission concerning a black hearse that was leaving Parkland, and she swore it had JFK in it. But according to the official story, we have JFK brought out and put in a white hearse and taken back to Love Field to Air Force One in the bronze casket. Now, the Warren Commission didn't want to have anything to do with Tammy True or her witness. She wanted to bring in front of them so he could corroborate her story. They kind of brushed her off and dismissed her as basically a loon. Back to Parkland with William Greer, okay? Just for a moment, okay? And because the body had to get out of the casket and into a body bag, the problem with that is people would have seen on Air Force One. Jackie rode with the coffin pretty much all the way back to Washington, right beside it. So how did they pull this off? Well, it only leaves one answer. That the body was removed from Parkland out through in Trauma Room 1, there's another door that leads over to, I can't remember which room it is, but in this other room, and out that door, there leads to a tunnel back to the outside of Parkland, back to in the vicinity of where the black hearse was. It's theorized by my buddy Russ about that they had put JFK in the body bag and took him out this tunnel and loaded him into the black hearse and went on ahead to Love Field Air Force One. Okay. Now, while at Love Field, of course, Air Force One was secluded away back from prying eyes and paparazzi, and the body could have easily been loaded in the forward compartment towards the front of the plane on the other side, on the right-hand side of the plane, and this way the body would have been in this forward compartment. Meanwhile, back at Parkland, there is a battle ensuing over removing the president from Dallas. The coroner, Earl Rose, is battling with the Secret Service agents for removing the body. You know, he's saying it's a Dallas crime. It needs to have a Dallas autopsy, and this, that, and the other. Well, meanwhile, okay, the Secret Service can't let that happen, because if Earl Rose gets a hold of this casket, he's going to open it and find out that there is no body inside. Okay, the body's already gone. Okay, the Secret Service are going to get this casket out of Parkland one way or the other without it being opened by Earl Rose. You know, and if it comes to shoving him up against the wall and putting a gun to his face and telling him, no, dude, we're taking the body, whether you like it or not, then there's nothing you can do about it, then so be it, which is ultimately what happened. Okay, so now we have the bronze coffin being taken onto Air Force One, you know, up through the, I don't know the proper name for the entrance there, and, you know, it's kind of in the tail part of Air Force One on the left side. And they had to rip out a piece of the wall to get this coffin around the corner on the plane and stowed in there. Now, then at this point is when I asked Russ, I said, well, let me ask you something, Russ. I said, wouldn't all these guys know they're carrying an empty coffin? I mean, you know, you're looking at a difference of, you know, almost 200 pounds. You know, an empty coffin versus a coffin with almost 200 pound man inside. You know, you're going to know the difference. And he said, well, that is exactly what those oxygen tanks could have been left inside the coffin for the weight. And of course, the body bag was taken out of the coffin to put JFK in to get him out the tunnel and out and off onto Love Field and onto the other side of the airplane. Now, this would have afforded whoever is on that airplane, okay, a good, probably, because they had to wait around for a while at Love Field, maybe 45 minutes before they even took off, you know, for the judge to get there and LBJ to get sworn in and all that happy stuff. And, you know, to get all these dignitaries back off the plane, and for them to actually get set and get ready to go, they would have still been on the ground for like 45 minutes after JFK's body would have been on the plane. And then, of course, they got a, you know, 3.5, 4 hour trip back to Washington, whatever it was. That's a long time to figure out what you need to do to the body and do it. You know, maybe you wouldn't have the best facilities on the plane to do something like this. Maybe they had him in the galley in the little kitchen there. I don't know. You know, it's hard to say, or who even was in there working the magic. I don't know. But somebody had to do something from Parkland to Bethesda. Because when the body arrives at Bethesda, it's once again covered in blood. And it was just cleaned at Parkland before they wrapped it in the sheets. Okay? So how does it get bloody again at Bethesda? And how does there have different wounds on the body than was seen at Bethesda? Or at Parkland? There's a blowout to the back of the head at Parkland, but at Bethesda there's not. They put it a little further up on the head, above the ear. Initially, like Lipsy said, they found that a bullet hole entered at the base of the skull, the top of the neck, and then in the upper part of the back. And what we were thinking last week was why they would have created this back wound that didn't go anywhere en route. And we figured that possibly they didn't see the bullet wound that was in the back of JFK's head, because it was in the hair. It was in the hairline. So they may have overlooked it on the plane and decided that, if we're going to say the patsy was behind this guy, he needs to have some wounds to the back of him, to support this. So they added them. Well, they added one. Now, what they might not have known is that there was already one on the back of his head. And, of course, this was discovered at Bethesda by the doctors there and discussed. And this is the reason that Humes had to burn his notes. Because they only had so many bullets to work with. Then they had to account for a miss. You can't have 1, 2, 3 wounds in a man from separate bullets. This is not even accounting for what the hell happened to Connolly. Okay, we're just talking about JFK now. You have 3 bullets, 3 separate wounds in Kennedy. You have 3 shells, but yet we have James Tague getting injured by a stray shot. And, that's just the one we're told about. I'm sure there was a couple holes in the Stedman sign. I know there was a bullet mark over by the manhole cover on the cement there. They were possibly digging out a bullet from the grass there in one of the pictures, the FBI guys, over near where Roger Craig was. And, of course, we have the James Tague hit. Then we have a hit on the top of the chrome strip of the limousine. We have a bullet hole in the limo windshield. So we've got way more bullets and bullet damage than we have shell casings for a lone nut assassin to do. So therein lies the rub. They had to figure out something different that went along with the narrative that they needed at Bethesda to figure all this stuff out. So we have Air Force One, of course, landing in D.C. I don't even know where it was, Langley or Quantico. And, while everybody's focused on the other side of the plane and the removal, of course, of the ceremonial casket, the bronze casket, they're on the other side of the plane taking this body out and sticking it in this another hearse and getting it to Bethesda as quickly as possible. And they're making a big procession out of it. LBJ stops and gives a little speech to buy him some more time. But anyway, the hearse with the body arrives at Bethesda approximately half an hour before the ceremonial casket with Jackie arrives. We have the testimony of the x-ray technician who had already taken x-rays of JFK's body, and he's walking by and he sees Jackie and Bobby arriving with this other casket, and he's like, what in the hell is going on here? It was a decoy. Did Jackie and Bobby know that JFK was not in the casket, but he was already in the hospital. We don't know. Okay, and that's a question that I asked Russ. I said, Russ, what's to stop Jackie on Air Force One from opening up that casket, just lifting the lid to see her beloved husband one more time? And what the hell do you think would happen if all she saw was air tanks in there? All hell would have broken loose. Did it happen? We don't know. Okay? And there's some other crazy theories out there about J.D. Tippit being a body double for JFK. Because we know after he died, he went to a different hospital, and then they sent him over to Parkland. Now, what if they would have wrapped him up in the sheets and put him as a decoy in the casket, the bronze ceremonial casket? And that once he's at Bethesda, along with JFK, they have a body double for such things as a brain, a pretty much intact brain. They have a double that they can do X-rays with to insert 6.5 millimeter fragments. They can, have a dummy head that they can fix to do X-rays with. A number of things, because the wounds to Tippit were very similar to the wounds of Kennedy. Of course, Tippit had the wounds in his chest. And there's been some allegations that Tippit, or JFK, had a hole under his right nipple, but we don't know for sure by some. And, of course, Tippit was shot in the right temple at almost point-blank range. And could he have been used for, quote, spare parts, unquote? I don't know. It would have been awfully convenient, to have another body of similar dimensions of a police officer who his co-workers, used to call him Jack because of his resemblance to Kennedy. So they said. And if you look at the Tippit-Kennedy half and half picture, it was like half Tippit's face, half Kennedy's face. They do look very similar. Now, in the morgue, Tippit looks like a freaking skeleton. He's long and lanky and very gaunt looking, which, could be a result of losing blood. I don't know. But he didn't look too good in his morgue photos, and he didn't look very Kennedy-like in his morgue photos. But anyway, that's the narrative that I wanted to touch back on this week, and hopefully I got it right, and Russ is proud of me. I know I can't be as detailed as of course we were in our 4-hour conversation, in my 40 minutes here, but hopefully the point is gotten, especially, go back and listen to last week's podcast and then listen to this one. And hopefully the picture of how they stole that body out of Parkland and when possible alterations could have been made to it en route. Now we're going to pause just a second and we will be right back.
Orville Nix, the missing JFK assassination film by Dale Nix Jackson. The true story of an ordinary man swept up in extraordinary events. Orville Nix took a home movie in Dealey Plaza of the JFK assassination. The original film is missing, and only copies exist. The Nix film shows the infamous grassy knoll sequence of the JFK assassination in Dealey Plaza. Why was it missing? What did Orville Nix see? Could the U.S. government and mass media be part of a conspiracy to hide the truth from the world? Orville Nix, the missing JFK assassination film, is not the typical JFK assassination book. This book does not attempt to answer who killed JFK, but why we should question actions of the time and why the truth was withheld from the public. Written by his granddaughter, Gail Nix Jackson, in a narrative style, the book shares the story of Orville Nix and how he was intimidated, yet remained adamant to what he witnessed that horrific day. Orville Nix, the missing JFK assassination film, available at GailNixJackson.com. That's GailNixJackson.com.
That is GailNixJackson.com. 22 November's own Gail Nix Jackson. That's right. And today, we just had another fantastic blog post from Francesca, the Grassy Knoll Girl, on 22november.wordpress.com. So please, if you have not yet, go check it out. It is a fine piece of writing and very important and very informative concerning Oliver Stone's film JFK. You do not want to miss it. Now, like I was saying before, I believe the alteration to the body occurred en route on the plane because we have testimony from the people that actually took it out of the body bag, laid it on the table. It was already bloody. It wasn't something that the Bethesda doctors could have done because there's too many witnesses around by that time. And of course, they weren't privy to exactly what the Parkland doctors had done to the body. So they wouldn't have known if the Parkland doctors did it or if it was done en route. Now, they might have figured it out because, according to Richard Lipsey, they desperately tried to trace the path of the back bullet and around to the front and through the body, and they could not. The track only went in so far and then disappears. And Lipsey tells of, of course, them removing his vital organs in the chest area, in the chest cavity, and dissecting them all looking for this bullet. But they never did find it. So did the bullet fall out? Or was this just a fake wound? A foreign substance was found around this fake wound on JFK and his clothes. And no traces of lead or copper were found, which, of course, would indicate, like I said before in last podcast, either a bullet fired using a sabot that would not have contracted any of those metallic particles that could have been left on the back or the body upon entry, or it was a wound created by something else, not a bullet, but meant to look like a bullet hole. What exactly it is, I don't know. We'll never know. And in some of these autopsy pictures, you'll see... Hang on a second. Damn helicopter. Hold on a second. Okay, false alarm. That was not the CIA black helicopters coming to get your boy Rob Clark here at the Lone Gunman Podcast. I'm still here. Still kicking. False alarm. And I can't remember where I was at about the fake wound, but there's some autopsy pictures that show a damage to JFK's right temple area up near his hairline, like a little crevasse that leads into the skin flap or bone flap on the right side of his head, which probably is how he looked when he got to Bethesda. This was not present at Parkland, at least according to Aubrey Bell, who again indicated that she saw no indication of shots to JFK's face. Hence why she asked Malcolm Perry to, how did he die? Where's the wound? Because she didn't see anything. And even Jackie Kennedy had said later that, his face looked just fine. There was no indication of any wound to his face. It still looked just like JFK. So it was likely that this wound was created to somehow match whatever the hell was in the Zapruder film, or vice versa. Because in the Zapruder film you have this what everybody calls the pink blob. After he's shot, it looks like half his face falls down into this pink blob. And of course, this is not present, at least according to Parkland doctors and nurses at Parkland at all. The only indication that they found, their defects that they found, was of course in the back of the head that was blown out. And of course, it's been said, I think by David Manick, there's indication of 2 shots from the back in that same general area, according to the way it craters and beveled edges on the Harper fragment that match up with the skull x-rays and so forth and so on. And like I've told you before, I'm not really big on the medical evidence. I do have Lifton's book, and I think he did a good job on it. A lot of it's above my pay grade and over my head as far as comprehension on that kind of a scale of hundreds of pages of. But the interviews he does with the people at Parkland and Bethesda are very, very good. They're very, very valuable. And once again, it's just like a microcosm of the Kennedy assassination. It's pieces of a puzzle, okay, that we need to put together to form a narrative that makes sense according to what we know now and what could have possibly happened to incur all of this damage and so forth, or lack thereof at either place, and to conform with the testimony that we all find. But of course, Richard Lipsey was the only one that I saw to put another wound in the back of his head, and he stated that the doctors at Bethesda definitely saw it. They were definitely talking about it. That's why I initially asked Russ. I said, "Well, why did they need to make a fake back wound if they had one already at the base of the skull, top of the neck, that would have matched the trajectory from a high office building with an exit wound in the throat? It was likely an entry wound, but they could make it an exit. It would have matched up. At least the trajectory would have matched up a little better than the wound that they created in the back. And we came to the conclusion that they likely did not see that, en route, on the plane when some of these alterations were made. But hopefully I did it justice this time, Russ. And if anybody out there has anything they want me to look into, get at me. I know I said last time we'd be looking at Prayer Man this week, and I wanted to fix the record a little bit on the medical evidence and the stealing of the body and the alteration of the body, and sew this up in a nice, neat little bow. And we will get into Prayer Man next week, I promise. I'm going to give you my take on that. Like I said, I still got to sketch some timeline stuff out because it is very, very confusing when you have to line up testimony and narrative and photo and film analysis and timelines there and have it match everything else. It is very confusing. So we're going to get into that next week. Stay tuned for that. We're going to get into Prayer Man, who is a very intriguing figure who has come into light in the wake of Oswald, the Doorway Man, which we all know is bunk, total bunk. And could this other guy have been Oswald, the Prayer Man, as he's called, from the way his arms are, the way he's standing and the way his arms are? It looks like he's praying in the Wegman film. But we'll get into that next week a little bit and see what we can figure out with Prayer Man. So this week, hopefully we've wrapped up the medical evidence nice and tight. I thank everyone for listening, sharing, and supporting the 22 November Network and the Lone Gunman Podcast and the Dallas Action. If you have not, and I don't know why you haven't, if you haven't, go check out Doug Campbell's most excellent podcast, The Dallas Action. You can find it on Spreaker. You can find him on Facebook. You can find him on the 22 November Network WordPress site that we have, and you can find links for all this stuff under my big ugly mug. It says info. You click on info, and it gives you all the links you need. If you want to send us an email, it's right there. You want to go to our Facebook page, it's right there. You want to go to our Twitter page and follow us there, you can. And I would suggest that you do, because we were going to be tweeting a lot from this conference, okay? So we can do nice little short hits live in real time. And you're going to want to follow us up. So if you haven't yet, create an account on Twitter, or if you're already on Twitter, follow the 22 November Network. Like I said, follow the link from the Spreaker page, the info page there, and it'll take you right to it. And you will be able to follow along at the conference as it happens. We'll hit you with the important bullet points, the intriguing items we come across, the interesting stuff. And we're also working on bringing you something special from the conference that we're hopefully going to have a little contest for and a little giveaway. So stay tuned for that. But anyway, that's it for this one. This sumbitch is beamed up to the satellite, down directly to your ears. This is the Lone Gunman Podcast, and this is your boy Rob Clark. Out.
Raining zombies like a bastard out here. Let fly the monkey of war. Pain is temporary. Pride is forever.
Hello, me. Meet the real me. In my misfits real life. Dark black past is my most valued possession. Hindsight is always 2020. Looking back is still a bit fuzzy. Speak of mutually assured destruction. Nice story. Taxpayers digest. Paranoid. Serenity. Your offspring.
Well, if it's the manuals upstairs in Solomon, I told him he's got the right ta-ta, but the wrong ho-ho. Man, I wouldn't know clear shot from fell across the monastery dead. Terrorism, what's it take?
Sink it down to your level. Yeah, just keep on thinking it's my fault. And stay an inch or two out of kicking death. Mankind has got
The Lone Gunman Compass.
crossed the board like waterfalls. Mistakes on my hands and I don't know where I fit. Double
Castro State. Short. Storage coach, I don't know. So you just picked two names out of the air. Right. Now, why did you do that? Well, I don't know what he's up to. He's picking me like chicken, shucking me like corn, throwing me like an oyster. I mean, he ain't put nothing down but air.
Raining zombies like a bastard out here.
The OIC suck. F you, Fetzer.